Hey, I'm here to talk to you guys today about trauma bonding, what the different stages look like, and how that can come off if you're with a narcissist. If you're new here, my name is McGann. I am not a doctor in any stretch of the imagination, but I am like the narcissist whisperer. My mother's a narcissist. I was married for 15 years to a narcissist, and I keep managing to date narcissists. So I'm trying to take my tormented experiences and use them to help other people. Because believe me, a narcissist attention, it feels like love, it looks like love, but it is not love. So first of all, what is trauma bonding? Well, basically, it is when you are in a relationship with somebody, usually it's romantic, but not necessarily, and they put you in these very stressful highs and lows. So it's, I love you, I love you, I love you, until all the dopamine centers in your brain are going crazy and you're just getting obsessed with that person and believing that person. And then they will pull the rug out from under you and then come back and give you some love and then take it back and then come back and forth until you are basically a mess that is unable to pick yourself up and walk away. And I have this article from the Dawn Rehab that is going through the different stages. I'm going to go over these and kind of relate it to some of my experiences. So stage 1, all love. In the beginning, your connection feels deep, intense, and genuine. Your partner showers you with love and affection in an all-out show of attention, also known as love bombing. You feel appreciated and loved, and you may even consider this person to be your soulmate. Now, this is really different than a normal kind of relationship because usually two people get to know each other and their love builds over time. When you're getting into a narcissistic relationship, it's like hot and heavy and intense, and they're right in your face all day, every day. Oh, I love you. You're so perfect. You're everything I ever wanted. And in a lot of cases, narcissists like to cycle back through the same people or people that they already know, because then they can look at you and say with some kind of authority to them, oh man, I noticed you way back in high school, or I was in love with you when we had that college class together, and I was just too shy to say anything. And then you end up being more inclined to believe it because there is that history there. And that's another way that a narcissist can manipulate somebody who is not necessarily codependent or insecure or, the other types of personality traits that they would feed off of and exploit to be able to draw them into their tangled mess. But by saying, hey, we have a history together, and I always wanted us to have this happily ever after, but we just couldn't make it happen before. But now I'm back for you, baby. That can very dangerously draw in people who wouldn't otherwise fall for the, oh, I love you, you're so perfect stuff right off the bat. And for me personally, I have to stop doing that to myself because I have a horrible habit of guys coming back into my life and going, oh, I've loved you since the 7th grade. And I'm like, oh, really? Really? Well, now what you're saying seems more true. I am very empathic. I am very much a people pleaser, and I always end up giving people the benefit of the doubt, even if I shouldn't. But even when I go into things very cautiously and I'm like, well, you're saying all this, but it's kind of fast. We really don't know each other. It's been a long time since we've talked. Then comes stage 2, gaining trust, establishing dependency. In this stage, your partner does everything they can to win your trust. You will feel you can rely on them and are beginning to feel dependent on them for love and validation. Because your partner has been providing this in full supply, this won't feel risky, but sets the stage for what's to come. And I will tell you with my most recent guy, if you saw my story time videos, I have a real problem with seeing he's a snake, recognizing he's a snake, but still wanting to pick him up anyways. And there is that problem with human brains where we are wired to be more receptive to things that we're more familiar to. So not only do we have this history together where he comes in, basically says, oh, I love you, you're everything I want, let's be together. And as soon as I'm like, okay, let's do it, I believe you, he's, nah, oops, what, oh, you took me seriously, who? And then he'll come back years later and be like, oh, I was in this horrible place before and blah, 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 blah. And it sounds very reasonable to me. So I end up being very stupidly susceptible for it. And that's the problem with building that trust. When somebody is contacting you and they are messaging you or calling you or whatever they're doing to be in touch with you almost from sun up to sundown for days or weeks on end, hearing, I love you, you're perfect, I want to be with you. I love you, you're perfect, I want to be with you. You're the only person I want. You're my whole world. You mean everything to me. I'm so sorry about everything else that happened. Like I said, familiarity tends to breed positivity. So the more we hear it and the more we're engulfed in that environment, the more true it seems. And at the same time, because we are getting all of this positive attention, it sets off all these chemicals in our brain. So we're also more likely to be stupid because of that. And normally I try to be a very stand on my own feet kind of gal. But with this dude coming in and being like, oh, I just want to take care of you. And look, I make X amount of money a year. And no matter how many times I said, I don't care about your money, man. I don't care about your bells and whistles. Like, I care about, like, you as a person. He's like, no, I make all this money. I'm going to take care of you. You don't even have to worry. We're just going to live this happily ever after. We're going to have babies together. We're going to live this beautiful life. I mean, totally just future faking me, which, if you're not familiar, future faking is where somebody is making plans not just as like, oh, someday I would like to go to Europe or someday I'd like to have children, but like very specifically, oh, I want to have 2 children with you and this is when we're going to start and this is what we're going to name them, and getting all these little tiny details for a life that they have no investment in. They don't care. They don't even want it. They just want you to want it so that you want them. Then we move into stage 3, which is a shift to criticism. The criticism generally begins slowly and might just seem like the normal progression of 2 people getting to know each other more. It will become pervasive, and you'll find that you are often being blamed for things, including their feelings or perceptions, and that your partner will become more demanding. These demands will gradually extend to an insistence on changes in your normal behavior, personality, or relationships with others. And in my case, it is a really gradual shift and change. Like, it would go from, oh, I'm perfect in everything, to him throwing out these little tiny jabs like, oh, you dork, oh, you butthead. And, you know, even that I wasn't really taking seriously or personally. It was just kind of a, not quite flirty, but kind of in the ballpark of being flirty jabby. Hopefully somebody out there gets it. But then it's like every day the dial gets twisted a little bit more. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I don't want any more kids. And him saying he understands, to, oh, well, I just have to have another baby. If you want to have a life with me, I have to do this, I have to do that. And it's kind of like pushing and poking and prodding you into where he wants you. Another example was, at one point, we had gotten in a little bit of a tiff and I was getting upset, and this was over chat. And he was just like, all right, fine then, and blocks me. So I don't even hear from this guy for a month and a half. Then all of a sudden he starts liking my public posts on Facebook, and I check Messenger. I've been unblocked. So I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Which is a whole other tactic called hoovering. And he got me to hoover myself back up. So a reverse hoover. He was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't taking my mood medication. And I thought you were about to leave me. So I got so scared, and on and on and on about the most BS-y reasons to not speak to me for a month and a half. And then we're talking on the phone and he starts apologizing again. And I was like, yeah, you did mess up. And he was like, excuse me, you need to work on your temper. And that was when it was really, like, it hit me so weird. Like, why? Like, you're the one that blocked me and didn't speak to me for like 45 plus days. And now you're wanting to be back right where we were as if nothing happened, with just a little bit of, you know, oh, I'm sorry, poor me, wah, wah, wah. And part of your apology is to tell me how I was wrong. That's kind of an unusual way to go. But it was like, it was just odd enough to notice, but not odd enough to really question, because some people do have really sensitive boundaries. Some people do, you know, want to work on things on both sides to get better. So I didn't question that. Then there was another phone call, And he and I are normally very sarcastic people anyways. And I remember, I don't remember what I said, but I know I said something sarcastic. And he just goes, I'm getting into really heavy traffic, so I got to get off the phone. I'll call you back. And just like hung up really abruptly. And a few minutes later, I'm getting texts that are like, I hope you feel better soon. I'm like, what? Are you not calling me back? Are you mad at me? And then he calls me back for 2 minutes, not to really yell, but to be very like stern and cold and just go like, my wife used me as an emotional punching bag, so I have to draw the line somewhere. I just can't take this abuse from you. So obviously you're not feeling yourself today, and I'm not mad at you. I love you, but I just can't talk to you. And then he hangs up on me again, like really abruptly, while I'm trying to apologize to him. And I just kind of laughed when he hung up, because it was like, I don't think I did anything that out of line. And if I did, surely we could talk about it and it would be fine. It doesn't need to be such a gigantic issue. Oh, I said something kind of flippant that hurt your feelings. Tell me that. And then I know. And then I can say, oh, I'm sorry. And we can move on. Don't just be like, oh, you must be punished. Now you didn't do this right, so I'm withdrawing my affection. But again, it was one of those things where it was just borderline enough between maybe he does have some trauma and this is a really triggery boundary for him, and he's kind of getting weird and strangulating towards how I'm allowed to speak. Now, stage 4, gaslighting, and this one is really important because I don't think these definitions ever get into enough details. So it says, during this stage, you'll feel lost and confused as your partner convinces you that your feelings and perceptions are invalid and that all the problems in the relationship are solely your fault. This type of emotional manipulation is called gaslighting and can make you seriously doubt your own thoughts and reactions. And again, that plays into a lot of the criticisms that I was just describing, where it's like, I'm hearing what he says and I'm like halfway between, oh, I'm so sorry, and wait, are you really mad about that? But a lot of people tend to not fully get what gaslighting can be, because the stereotypical thing is that, oh, I go outside and I say, look at this beautiful blue sky, and the gaslighter comes up behind me and goes, no, that's yellow. You're crazy. What are you talking about? That's a yellow sky, until you believe that blue is yellow. And that can certainly be gaslighting for sure. But there were also a lot of times, because I am very perceptive and I have been through narcissistic abuse a lot, where I would see issues and I would call them out. So at one point, I remember sending him a message after he was really withdrawn for days and days and days. And I was like, hey, listen, I care about you. I'm not trying to like dump you or anything, but I feel like I'm chasing somebody who doesn't want to be caught. So I'm just going to back away and the ball's in your court because this is hurting my feelings. And his response was like, haha, I'm not ignoring you. Which came off like, why would you laugh like that? You're automatically trying to make me feel like I'm stupid just for saying this very sincere, vulnerable thing. But he's like, well, I'm just busy. I've got school and work and I've got to be in my kids' lives. And it's just a lot. And I said, I understand that that's a lot. You have a lot on your plate. I just don't think I'm on it. And I kind of have the impression that I'm just a fantasy distraction for when you're bored. And his response was, oh God, no, I'm so sorry I made you feel that way. That's not it at all. So every time I called out his behavior or his actions, I was told flat out that no, that's not the case. No, he really loved me. No, it was just this other situation. And then I ended up finding out that not only was he married but separated from a woman for the last 4 years, but during those 4 years that he was separated, he has had the same live-in girlfriend. And he had a baby with somebody else who is not either of those two women that he's already connected to. Real prize pig I picked out there, huh? So knowing the information that I do now, I mean, the guy was totally gaslighting me into believing the scenario that he was painting, even though it was not true for him at all. So gaslighting can be a lot more subtle than, no, this thing that you've known your whole life is obviously not true. It can be, oh, I'm sorry, when they're not sorry. It can be, no, that's not it, when you are calling them out on something when that is most definitely it. Gaslighting is anything that makes you doubt the reality that you're sure is in front of you. And the problem is, if you're in a narcissistic relationship, you might never know the reality in front of you because they tend to be compulsive liars. Then we move on to stage 5, resignation. You are getting absolutely nowhere using your usual methods of problem solving or open discussion in a relationship. Every time you try to work things out, your partner unleashes a barrage of blame and criticisms that is both painful and exhausting. You decide to try and do things their way in order to resolve conflict and get back to stage 1, which, if you've forgotten, stage 1 is the love bombing, where they're just showering you with attention and your brain's exploding. But for me and this guy that I've been talking about through all these examples, my resignation was maybe not quite as easy to see, because something else he would do is every couple of weeks, just out of the blue, things would seem fine from my end, and he would go, I'm sorry, I can't do this, go be happy, take care of yourself, whatever, and either not talk to me anymore or block me. And then he would come back within a day, oh, I'm so sorry, I just got so stressed, I got so scared of my feelings, I'm so overwhelmed by my emotions for you. But he would never actually get into any more details than that. So the more I'd try to pry and say, what is the actual problem here? What's actually going on here? The more I would be met with resistance and being ignored. So what it taught me was not to question him, or else he could be gone at any given moment. There's also a situation that I noticed a lot in hindsight now, where if he wanted to kind of do a game like sexy talk and I wasn't feeding into that correctly, he would just stop responding to me and not respond to me for maybe a full day or more at a time. And then when he would come back, it would just be a completely new topic, something light and fluffy and not controversial. And it would be impossible to sort of talk about and fix the issue that was a problem before. So whereas I would normally want to get to the bottom of things and talk things out and have a good resolution for everybody, I just got to the point of, well, do you want him to talk to you or not? And that was my resignation. Stage 6, loss of self. Any attempt to push back against the way things are in your relationship result in extreme emotional manipulation and abusive behavior from your partner. Your family and friends, who have probably expressed concern about the relationship in previous stages, are now very worried. You have lost your confidence and your bearings and will do anything just to avoid another fight. And in my case, it was not necessarily, an argument that I was looking to avoid. It was more of the guy just popping smoke and leaving and putting me in this horrible emotional state where it's like, what did I do? What if I had done this instead of that? If I had leaned into doing this thing he wanted, and then would that have all made it better? But it's definitely a slow process that you do not necessarily see while you're in it. And even the baby issue I mentioned earlier, I was getting bombarded so much with, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want, why don't you want what I want, that I was starting to talk to him about having children when I do not want more children. Or, it would go from he was going to move closer to where I was to I was going to move in with him. Or where I am normally very vocal about what I want and how I feel, I was sort of ticked away and trained not to do that, or else he would not come around. And in every relationship, there is give and take, there is compromise, that's normal. But when you're starting to feel bad around this person, or even feeling bad because you're not getting what you feel is an appropriate amount of attention from this person, that's when you need to really start taking note, because something is probably wrong. And then we get to stage 7, which is what makes all of this pinwheel go round and round and round and round. That is emotional addiction. At this point, your body is running on near constant levels of high stress and craving relief or pleasure, creating a cycle of dependency that can feel very similar to a substance addiction. You probably have some sense that the relationship is bad for you, but are either making excuses for it, like your partner has a troubled past or trauma of their own, or you feel unable to leave it. And that is so scary accurate. I didn't understand why, when this guy came around, suddenly I was getting upset, when he wasn't as responsive to me. And, it was like, what hoops do I have to do to get you to be more responsive to me? I noticed him pulling back and contacting me less and less. Is that because I haven't said I love you yet? Well, let me say I love you now. Okay, well, I got a bunch of attention from that, so let me keep playing into doing what I believe he wants. But the problem is, no matter what you do, the narcissist is going to keep pulling back the attention, and you're going to be performing more and more tricks to try and get the attention back. So it's like a slot machine where you put in a coin of your affection, you pull the lever, And at first, you get the jackpot right in your lap. So now you're sitting in here putting in more coins, trying to pull the lever more and more and more and more, and nothing's coming back out. And if it is, you're getting maybe 3 or 4 coins, nowhere near as much as you put in. And pretty soon you run out of the coins that you got out of your jackpot winnings, and now you're putting in your personal money because you just want that fix. And that emotional addiction is also really damaging if that person decides that, well, I'm just going to cut you off like you didn't matter and stop talking to you. Because they usually do it without giving you any kind of closure, so that your brain is doubly reeling. And then you start feeling like you're going into withdrawal because they're not speaking to you. And you're just craving this, hey, text me back, call me back, write me back, get in touch with me, please. Because they have given you so much attention and approval and affection that your brain is out of order now. It's all dysregulated. And especially if this person has already love bombed you so hard that you are on the hook with them and you feel really like you love them, you're going to be a lot more malleable to mold into whatever they want, even if it's just a toy to pick up occasionally when they're bored. And that's all part of intermittent reinforcement, where if there is no rhyme or reason to when you're going to get that payoff emotionally or otherwise, then you are going to work so much harder and start neglecting your own needs to try and get that feeling back. But that's the thing with a narcissist, is that there is no pattern, there is no way for you to win, because the person who came in and love bombed you doesn't exist. They're not real. So you start going crazy and feeling like, oh, I did something wrong. Remember all these criticisms that he did before? Like, oh, I did all these things wrong to chase him away, even if they were just, little tiny things that weren't really things. Like, oh my gosh, how dare you get angry with me when I say I'm going to do something and I don't do it? I'll teach you. But by then, you have got such a gambling addiction to this person that you may not know how to break free on your own. And if you do manage to get away from this person, either because they left you or you got fed up and left them, you're still not able to stop your brain from going into withdrawal. So it is hard, it is difficult. And if you have been going through this, please know that you are not alone, because narcissists just take and take and take, and then they throw you away without a second thought. And if they think that, hey, I've been gone long enough, they've built something back up I can take again, they'll come right back like vampires. So stay safe, stay educated, and remember, protect yourself first, because a narcissist is never going to put you first. Take care, guys.